Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I mentioned to you, see this masla here, if you just see here, mm, okay, the last discussion with, okay, I'll come back to that portion what I want to discuss with you here. Why does this pop on the screen every time? Is this right? It doesn't matter. That's fine. Doesn't matter anything. Okay, so Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The last discussion of this from this year, وإذا انقطع دم الحيض لأقل من 10 أيام لم تحل وطئها حتى تغتسل, that we discussed in our last meeting. When the haze cuts off from lesser than 10 days, then what you will not permissible until she does not bath. So there's two scenarios here. One is um, if a woman was bleeding and she stopped bleeding lesser than, or a bleeding or was cut off lesser than 10 days as per habit, whatever, doesn't matter whether it's a habit or not, but just she bleeds lesser than 10 days. So it will not be permissible for her to have husband-wife relationship until either she bath or either one salah becomes qadha, which is obviously haram, right? Understood that? There's the essence and the crux of the whole lesson. I'll repeat that. Oh, not the whole lesson, but that ibarat. I'll repeat it again, that if a woman bleeds lesser than 10 days, whether it's a habit or not a habit, doesn't matter really, just she bled lesser than 10 days, right? Then it will not be permissible for her to have husband-wife relationship until she does not bath, or either, which is haram, she allows a salah to become qadha. So once she baths, then it's permissible to have husband-wife relationship, or once she allows the salah to become qada, which is haram, obviously, then also it will be now permissible for her then to have a husband-wife relationship, right? Are you with me? Just read it ibarat again and we can fit it in. Just read it ibarat. Right, see it. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وَإِذَا انْقَطَعَ دَمُ الْحَيْضِ, when the hayd cut off لأقل من 10 أيام, for less than 10 days, لم تحل وطئها حتى تغتسل, ولم يحل, what will not be permissible until she does not bath. I told you. So just a simple example to understand this here, that a woman um, bled for 6 days, 7 days, according to her habit, so until she does not bath. So she just look at a scenario. Say, for instance, Zohr till Asr is, Zohr time comes at 12 o'clock and comes out at 4 o'clock. So she stopped bleeding by 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. She have to bath and then she become halal for husband to have relationship. Right? Simple. Right. لم تحل وطوح حتى لأن الدم يضر تارة, because sometimes the blood continues وينقطع أخرى, sometimes it cuts off, فلا بد من الاغتسال, so it's necessary to bath ليترجح الجانب الانقطاعي. I told you last time, this is not something physical, it's more like abstract. To say that, look here, there is a possibility that she can still bleed. So just to solidify or to galvanize the fact that now she's clean, we say she must bath. Yes, if she bleed after the game, then she'll have to re-bath again. She have to make tawbah for the relationship she had. And obviously, salah she made in that time won't be valid. Whatever she read Quran also won't be valid. So just the abstract concept to say that because there's a possibility the blood can still come. So to solidify the fact that she's clean now, she must bath, right? Then say, وَلَوْ لَمْ تَغْتَسِلْ. I told you this is not permissible as haram, but وَلَوْ لَمْ تَغْتَسِلْ, if she does not bath, right? وَمَضَى عَلَيْهِ أَدْنَى وَقْتُ الصَّلَاةِ. Now remember this also, this is important. When we say أَدْنَى وَقْتُ الصَّلَاةِ, such time where she can take a bath and she can make the takbir tahrima at least, not the whole salat. So she became clean, right? For such an amount of time before the exit time of Salah, which I would say maybe is 15 minutes or so. So if she claimed clean 15, then that Salah becomes necessary upon her. Whether she bath or not, that Salah becomes necessary. So she checked her pad, she checked whatever, and she saw she was clean 15 minutes or 20 minutes before the exit time, that Salah becomes necessary because she came clean and she knows she was clean to such an amount of time. It was possible for her to wash up and make takbirat tahrima, so that salah becomes necessary. So there she never do it. She allowed the salah to become qada. Or maybe let's say she was in a place where she couldn't, maybe it was impossible or whatever. So then we'll say now that that salah becomes qada upon her. And when the next salah time enter, it's permissible for her to make um a husband-wife relationship. Is permissible for her to make wati with the husband. Why? Because also, like how the ghusl, it galvanized and solidified the position that she's now clean. Here too, by the time the salah becoming qadha, it will say now it also solidify the position that she's clean. Are you with me? So walau lam taghtasil, that bath wa madha alayha adna waqtu salati, and the minimum time of salat pass. And here's the explanation. What is it? Right? What is it? بقدر, to such an extent أن تقدر على الاغتسال, she's able to bath, والتحريمة, then حل وطئها, it will be permissible. Why? لأن الصلاة صارت دينا, because when when she became clean so many minutes before the exit time of the salah, I told you salah became wajib upon her, and the salah has become a debt upon her. She owed the salah. لأن الصلاة صارت دينا في ذمتها, so salah became wajib upon her. فطهرت حكما. So although physically she didn't physically bath, but what we'll say is that as an abstract concept, we'll say now that she's clean. That why she's clean? Because salat didn't become wajib. She wasn't clean. You know what I'm saying? So the fact that salat became wajib, became qadha, shows that she was definitely clean. So the janib or the angle of her being clean, his istihkam is now solidified. Right. So before the next text is very, very important, and it's a very, very important principle. But she right. So if that happens, so that time when so the question here is the question that the student is asking is that just we'll say the whole scenario. A woman she checked her pad 20 minutes, 15 minutes before the salah, and she saw, hey, I'm clean here. And then she, for whatever reason, now it was necessary for her to bath, was necessary for her to stay to start the salah because she's clean, and there's still time. I mean, explain this a lot of time before. We look at the last moment, right? So whatever reason, she never bathed. Say she never bathed, right? So uh, salat became qada upon her. So technically speaking, what is halal? So she had husband-wife relationship. She thought she could kill two birds with one stone. She'll whack it quickly. Then after that, she's going to bath and make one bath with both things, which we'll do. I think this masa comes on later on. Yeah, I'll show you also when she bleeds more than 10 days. So what she done was wrong. And then because she made the namaz become qaza, whatever, then she had husband-wife relationship. And then after you see she bled again, then technically speaking, she is still in Haidh. Why? Because remember, whatever a woman bleeds less than 10 days is what? Is Haidh. So even if a woman normally bleeds 4 days, or she bleeds 5 days, or she bleeds 6 days, or whatever she bleeds, but as long as she bleed within the 10 days, that will be Haidh. That will be Haidh. And she'll have to now, okay, she didn't bath in the first instance, but she will bath again after that, and she'll be considered poor, clean after that. So no matter what her habit is, or matter what she done, if she bleeds within the days of Haidh, that will be Haidh, right? She, yeah. So there is a masla here that it's not in Hidayah. I told you, I mentioned to you before. Hidayah is very, very sparse with all the masla, but the main usul are mentioned. But there is a masla that you'll see in Barhawi's manual and all that type of thing. If due to some miscalculations and that type of thing, husband wife had a relationship, then what must she do? They must give some sadaqah to offset for that. So I would imagine the same thing will happen here. You'll have to give some type of sadaqah, right? Okay. So I wanted to share something else with you. Remember, we always from from small we always know or we knew this masla that that if something is not a Quran per se, it is like I told you, it is a Quranic inscription on a wall or Quranic inscription on a frame and all that type of thing. Then you only have to avoid, you have to make ijtinab of the actual writing. You can touch everything around it. Like, so right, we done that. Like I told you, try. We said a cell phone is not actually a formal Quran. So when you open something on the Quran, of the Quran on the phone, you can touch the whole phone except the writing, right? So just coincidentally, I was just last night. I was looking at my kitabs, and I picked up a kitab of Mufti Said, the late Mufti of Darul Umm Deoband, Mufti Said Palampuri, was a brilliant scholar. So he's got a book where he got all Zawabi, but Allah's Qudrat. I just picked up that thing coincidentally, and he explained the whole masla nicely. I told you the problem was this year. What was vexing me? Wala akhdu dirhamin. This is about few ibaras back. We go 3, 4 ibaras back. I'll read the ibarat for you. Um, the ibarat goes back here. وَلَا أَخْذُ دِرْهَمٍ فِي سُورَةٍ مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ إِلَّا بِسُورَتِهِ. So this was troubling me. I said, but we always knew that if it's not a Quran per se, right, then you just have to abstain from the actual Quranic inscriptions. But this is suggesting here that you can't touch the entire coin except that it is in its bag, whatever. So if you look at this, it makes it very, very difficult. That means you can't even touch the phone, whatever. You understand what I'm saying? So I checked this of Mufti Saab, and Mufti Saab mentioned that he said, no, there is two opinions in the Hanafi madhab, right? The one opinion is, as is mentioned here, if anything got Quranic inscription like a frame or the wall, or like I told you, you got a car, you won't be able to touch the whole thing. But the fatwa is not on that. The fatwa is anything which is not a formal Quran, anything which is not a formal Quran, right? You can touch everything besides the writing, right? And another interesting thing there also it is mentioned, I told you, there also in that kitab is mentioned, some ulama say that when you open your phone, you see this phone here, and I open the Quran app, and all the other apps are closed. Then the phone is like a Quran, because now the primary object, although it's not a permanent Quran, but it's like a temporary Quran. If I look here, if I open a Quran app here, I hope the online people can understand what I'm saying. If they don't understand, they can ask me. So remember, I told you, if something is a formal Quran, then you can't touch the entire book. Not only the writing, you have to abstain from, right? So some ulama say that, look here, when you open a Quranic app on the phone, that means the primary objective of the phone is a Quran, like how the primary objective of the Quran. So you can't. So once that app is open, you can't touch the phone at all. Any portion that's attached, like how you can't touch the Quran to such an extent, even if the cover of the Quran is fixed to the Quran, right? You can't touch the cover. So you can't touch even the cover of your phone because the whole thing is the Quran, is the Hukum of Quran, right? So that is, I can say, the more cautious opinion. But I tell you, the fatwa that our ulama give normally fatwa on is this here, that this is like how, like you say, tablet. When I say tablet, I mean not your iPad tablet. I'm talking about previous tablets, they would have like a clay tablet or something of clay. They also, because it's not a Quran, so to say, you can touch like a rakam, whatever, you can touch everything besides the writing, right? So, so this year of what Sahib Hidayah has mentioned is the fatwa is not on that, right? Is that clear? Okay. So I was telling you, if you look at today's sabak, it's very, very important, and this will solve many, many masail of yours. If you have difficulty, so let's try to understand this properly, right? Uh, it's not actually the first ibadah, but will come later on in today's sabak. Bismillah, tafadhal, right there. You got lam yakrubha, lam yakrabha. Okay, I got qaruba yaqrubu, right? Or maybe wait, right? Okay. First, let's look at the explanation here, and then we'll fit it into the ibarat. Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. What they're saying is, if a woman bleeds more than 3 days, now we know it's Haidh, right? We know it is Haidh. But this month, she is bleeding lesser than her normal adat. So just simple example. The best way to understand things by example. So one day when you teach Haidh, inshallah, remember that. So a woman normally bleeds every month for 6 days, right? This time here, she bled for 3 days. And now she's, hey, I'm clean this month. I'm clean. There's no blood coming out. So they say here that even though she's clean, even though she bath or everything, she should still not have husband-wife relationship. Why she shouldn't have husband-wife relationship? Because generally, most of the time, a person will bleed according to their habit. And the chances of bleeding, yeah, are very great. So the chances of her bleeding after this, maybe even if it's after a few hours, whatever, is very great. And if she bleed, that means she had husband-wife relationship while she was in Haidh, right? Remember, to be in Haidh, you mustn't physically see the blood. you like just to understand this. If a woman bled, in fact, this is coming here in the subject also. A woman bled 3 days, she stopped for 2 days, she bled on the seventh day or the eighth day. So remember, this is called damil mutawali because it's within the period of Haidh as though she was bleeding from the first day till the seventh day. So to be in Haidh, you don't have to be physically bleeding. And to be clean also, you don't have to be physically clean. You can be bleeding, but you are clean. And that we will discuss here also now in the subject. I'll point it out to you when I come to that day, inshallah. So, um, so here is not correct. Why? Because they're saying, see, ولو كان قطع الدم, if the blood is cut off دون عادتها, lesser than what her habit was. I told you she normally bleed for 6 days. This month she bled 4 days, and she could see, she knows her body. She can say, hey, look like I'm finished. I'm not gonna bleed, right? Right? فوق الثلاث. Why فوق الثلاث? Because obviously it was lesser than 3 days. It wasn't a haze, right? لم يقربها, he will not come, يعني لم يقربها زوجها حتى تمضي عادتها until her عادة is finished, right? وإن اغتسلت, even if she bath. Why? لأن العودة في العادة غالب, because returning, the blood returning to the habit غالب, most of the time it happened. فكان الاحتياط, so this عبارة is saying احتياط. What is showing here from this is it's not like haram for her to engage in a husband-wife relationship if she bathes before, but it's better, right? فكان احتياطه في الإجنابي, right? Caution, caution demands, right. وإن انقطع الدم لعشرة أيام. Interesting one, Muslim. This is an extension of the previous masala which we discussed earlier. If she bled more than 10 days. Now, like I told you here, when even if one salah became qadha, even though she did not bath after the salah became qadha, it was permissible for her to make to have wati with the husband. So same thing here. If she bled the full 10 days, full 10 days, whether it's a habit or it's not a habit or whatever, she bled the full 10 days. And after the 10 days, if she decides now she want to kill two birds with one stone, she want to save water, she will have a husband-wife relationship after the 10 days, then she'll bath one time, and then that bath will serve as a bath to be cleansed from her menses, and also it will be a bath of the janabat, then she may do so, right? So one bath will suffice for both. You understood it? Do you see there now? Follow there? وإن قطع الدم, if the blood cuts off لعشرة أيام, for more than 10 days, that means حل وطئها قبل الغسل, to have husband-wife relationship with her is permissible بالغسل. Why? لأن الحيض, because the حيض لا مزيد له على العشرة, there is no increase upon 10 days in the Hanafi madhab, right? So remember I told you, the whole purpose of the ghusl was to make istihkam, like as an abstract concept, to solidify it. Now this woman is out of hayd. And here, after 10 days, it's already been solidified by that. And or if one salat became qadha, it's already been solidified that she's out of hayd, right? Illa anna yustahabu, but it is mustahab that even though she bled more than 10 days, it's mustahab that she bath first, although it's permissible, قبل الغسل للنهي في القراءة بالتجديد. Why they say, because you see the verse Quran said, ويسألونك عن المحيض قل هو أذان فاعتزلوا النساء في المحيض ولا تقربوهن حتى يطهرن. So it's not حتى يطهرن. That is ثلاثي مجرد. حتى يطهرن, until she is thoroughly cleansed. So to practice upon that verse, you say until she is thoroughly cleansed, you say it is better that she first bath first, and then you can, although if she had husband-wife relationship, it's not haram. So here's the one that I was speaking to you. This is the important one, called الطهر المتخلل. Like I told you that it doesn't mean you have to be bleeding all the time to be considered to be bleeding. It doesn't mean you have to be clean all the time to be clean. See, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Okay, read. والطهر والطهر إذا تخلل. Right. right? لحم والطهر when a clean period إذا تخلل بين الدمين it comes between two bleedings في مدة الحيض in the period of حيض فهو كالدم المتوالي, right? So here I did make reference to this principle earlier, but it is extension of what we discussed earlier. This is what I thought. Right? So everything within 10 days will still be hayd. Everything within 10 days. And also we mentioned to you that al-tuhar, the separates to bleeding, it must be 15 days. Anything which is occurs lesser than 15 days, it will be joined to the previous bleeding. So here, she's still in a time of haze because the maximum of 10 days, right? Are you with me? And the break in between is lesser than 15 days. The break in between is lesser than 15 days. So that will be joined up. So it's like I mentioned earlier, even though she wasn't physically bleeding, but this will be considered to be like a continuous bleeding. So see, وطهر, that the clean period إذا تخلل, when it intervenes, it comes between. No, خلال of the fingers coming in. بين الدمين, between two bleeding. في مدة الحيض, in the period of حيض. فهو كالدم المتوالي, it is like a continuous bleeding, as though she was bleeding all the time. Right? Is it clear? You understood that, right? So I told you, in order to separate bleeding, say now this bleeding is a separate bleeding. It must be 15 days in between. Remember, so you can say that you must have a tuhur fasilu. The tuhur that separate between two bleeding is 15 days. So قال هذه إحدى الروايات عن أبي حنيفة. This is one of the narrations from Imam Hanifa. And what is the reason why we're saying that if you bleed within 15 days, it must be joined to the previous bleeding? ووجهه أن استيعاب الدم مدة الحيض ليس بشرط بالإجماع. The reason is just that for a continuous bleeding during the time of hayd, it is not a condition with ijma, unanimously amongst all the ulama. Like I told you, what I'm saying is that for you to bleed the whole 10 days is not the condition. So long as you bled in between the 2 days and the and between and that break is lesser than 15 days, it will be considered to be a continuous bleeding. And this is ijma, unanimity amongst all ulama. Right? So you atabaru, so you'll just look at awaluhu, the first bleeding, wa akhiru, and the last bleeding, kan nisabi fi babi zakati, like in the chapter of zakat. Okay, yeah, there's another masala to explain to you. Let's just break away from here for a moment. See, one day inshallah we'll do the chapter of zakat. For you to qualify to pay zakat, you must have the nisab, right? Until you never have that nisab which is unencumbered. You got a nisab that is free of debt, right? So here in South Africa at the moment, that would be like about 10,000 rand. In the UK, I'll imagine that will, because we are 1 to 20. You can tell me if anybody knows what the nisab in the UK can tell me. But I will imagine that the nisab in the UK will be something like 500 pounds, maybe 500 pounds, because the rand is 1 to 20, right? So if at the beginning of the year you've got the nisab, not in the beginning, whenever, there's no year, it works according to your year. So you never have 10,000 rand in your life ever, which was free of debt, but you got 10,000 which was free of debt, right? So whatever it is, maybe you got it on the 1st of March, right? Understand this, Masa. You can benefit from this Masa also from Zakat. Inshallah, although it's related to the lesson here. So you got 10,000 rand unencumbered, no debt, right? No current debt, not long term debt. Now, if 1 year passes over the 10,000 rand, at the end of 1 year, Islamic year from then, you pay zakat on what you have, right? It's not a condition that you must have the full nisab for the whole year. If during the year that amount fluctuates to such an extent you even have lesser than nisab, so long as the money doesn't disappear altogether. So you had 10,000 rand on the 1st of March. During the year, it came down to 8,000, 4,000, 3,000, 1,000, but not completely. But exactly one Islamic year, you again had the nisab. You again had the nisab, right? So we'll say that you still have to pay zakat on the amount you got at the end of the year. You won't say that look at during the course of the year, your month, your wealth went lesser than the nisab, so your time have to be restarted. No, so long as you had it nisab at the beginning of the year, even if it went lesser than the nisab during the course of the year, but at the end of the year you still had the full, you got the full nisab and more, you pay on the entire amount. You understood that, Masa? Is that clear? So same thing we're saying here, that so long as you bled the 3 days already, which shows that it's Haidh, which means you qualify for Haidh, and you bled again in lesser than 15 days, because Rabbi is 15 days, that's the one that separates between two bleeding, right? So you bled lesser than 15 days, and also it is, it is within the period of Haidh, so we'll add up the whole amount and we make the whole amount Haidh. But what if it's more than 10 days? Listen, just look at me 1 second. So you bled 3 days, right? And then you were clean for 5 days, and then you bled another 5 days. All right. So now we know the maximum of is 10 days, right? And we're saying that the break in between is lesser than 15 days, so you must join it up. So what will you do? You still join up. So you say you bled 3 days, you broke for 5 days, you bled for another 15 days. So as though you are bleeding continuously. So 5 plus 5 plus 3 becomes 13 days. So the 10 days will be what? The 10 days will be higher, and the 3 days you are bleeding can't be Haidh, because we told you the maximum Haidh is 10 days. That's why I told you, I mentioned it earlier, sometimes you're not bleeding, but that will be considered a Haidh. Sometimes you are bleeding, it will not be considered Haidh. Look at the scenario. I told you, a woman bled for 3 days, then she was clean for 5 days, then she bled for 5 days. Now, if you look at that last 7 days, that whole 7 days, she wasn't bleeding, she was clean. But that will be considered Haidh. And if you look at the 11th day, the 12th day, the 13th day, she's bleeding heavy. She's bleeding profusely, but that will be high. It will not be high. Why? Because she's already crossed the threshold of having bled more than what you call it, of 10 days. It can't be high. You understood? Okay, so inshallah, time is up. We'll continue. We'll explain a bit more about this. But I introduced you the whole concept. I'm sure you've understood it. So that yeah, we can explain it again. But tomorrow, that inshallah. Bas subhanallah wa bihamdihi. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك ونشهد ان لا اله الا انت نستغفرك ونتوب اليك